Alright, this is the Unit 9 Quadratics Retest Study Guide. We are going to go and start number 1 here. Number 1 says the fourth root of 81. Okay. Now, this number tells us what we're looking for, pairs, threes, triples, or whatever. But no matter what, we have the same process. We go ahead and break this up. And I'm not looking for pairs, I'm looking for fours, so I have to keep on going. And you can see here I get 4 threes, so my answer is 3. Number 2 says -4 times the square root of 63. Well, looking at this one, remember here, it's gonna, whatever comes out of here needs to be multiplied by this number out front. So when we do this, we get 63, and we want to find something that divides by 63. And you remember, it doesn't matter which ones you can use any numbers, but I'm going to go and use 9 and 7. Break that up as 3 and 3, so a 3 comes out. So I get -12, is to take the 3 that comes out, gets multiplied by the number out front, leaves me with root 7. Number 3, square root of 24. Go ahead and break this up any way you want. I'll go 2 and 12, 2 and 6, 2 and 3. And I'm looking for pairs. So there's a pair of 2s. So a 2 comes out. And I'm going to remultiply these back together because there are no pairs. So it's 2 root 6. Number 4 says -6 plus or minus 6 root 3 all over 2. Now, I can't cross off the 6 and the 2 because this is technically a binomial up top here. So I got to use a GCF. So I'm going to take out a 6, the -1 plus or minus root 3 all over 2. Now I can cross this off, leaves me with a 3 and a 1. So I get 3 times -1 plus or minus root 3. You may also see this where they would probably multiply it back in. So they'd be -3 plus or minus 3 root 3. Number 5 says the square root of 49 plus the cube root of 125. Well, this breaks up into 7 times 7. This breaks up into 5 times 5 times 5. So that's 5. So my answer is 12. Number 6. Says -3 plus or minus the square root of 18 all over 6. Okay. Now this is very similar to number 4, but I have to simplify this radical first. So if I do 18 over here, that's going to be -3 plus or minus, a 3 comes out, root 2 all over 6. Now it's the same thing where I have to get a GCF out of the top, so I'm going to factor out a 3 is with -1 plus or minus root 2 all over 6, and I'll cross or reduce here with the 2, so the answer is -1 plus or minus root 2 all over 2. Number 7, 5x squared equals 30. Okay. So now I'm going to solve these. I'm going to do it by getting the x squared by itself, and I will take the square root of both sides, and x equals plus or minus the square root of 6. Don't forget that plus or minus. Number 8, 4x squared minus 3 equals 9. I'll go ahead and add 3 to both sides. This gives me 4x squared equals 12 divided by 4. X squared equals 3. Take the square root of both sides. And then I get x equals plus or minus the square root of 3. Number 9 says x plus 1 squared equals 6. Okay. Well, the first thing you want to do is you realize that you can take the square root of both sides because there's a perfect square on this side. Equals plus or minus root 6. Subtract 1 to both sides. I cannot add these together because they're not the same radicals. And technically my answers are negative 1 plus root 6 and negative 1 minus root 6. Number 10. Says x squared minus 4x, plus 4x minus 3 equals 0. Well, you can see here nothing multiplies to negative 3 and adds to 4, so I have to use my quadratic equation. So I'm going to go ahead and say negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4 times a times c all over 2 times a. And this is all equal to x. Now I'm going to simplify this out, so I get negative 4 plus or minus the square root of 16. This is a negative and a negative, so plus 12 all over 2. Negative 4 plus or minus the square root of 28 all over 2. 28 over here, I can break that up into 4 and 7. So it's going to be 2 root 7. So I get negative 4 plus or minus 2 root 7 all over 2. Remember, I cannot cross those 2's off. I have to factor GCF out of the top. So I'm going to get a 2 out. All over 2, and I can cross those off, and I'm left with negative 2 plus or minus the square root of 7. And to be technical, our answers are x equals negative 2 plus root 7 and x equals negative 2 minus root 7. Number 11 says they want you to graph, and this is what they're telling you to graph. And it says, well, this negative sign tells me the parabola is upside down. Okay, so then I set the other ones equal to 0. Alright, so I'm going to say x plus 3 equals 0. X minus 2 equals 0. So I get x equals negative 3 and x equals positive 2. So I know when I graph this thing, it opens down. So I'll go to 1, 2, negative 3 as a dot, positive 2, that's a dot. And then I draw the parabola opening down. Opening down. Number 12. Negative 12. Number 12 is actually a typo. I wanted that thing to say find the x-intercepts of y equals x squared minus x minus 12. That should be a minus 12. So what we're going to go ahead and do is I'm just going to factor this. Okay, set it equal to 0. Minus 4 plus 3. I get x minus 4 equals 0, x plus 3 equals 0, add 4 to both sides, and x equals 4. And x equals negative 3. Number 13 says find the x-intercepts. And they give you this graph here. And remember, the x-intercept is simply where it crosses the x-axis. And based upon this graph, it crosses at negative 1 and negative 1, 2, 3, 4. So your x-intercepts are just going to be negative 1 and negative 4. Okay, 14. 14 is a 3-part question. They basically want to ask you, you know, what is the, or how many solutions there are. If you remember, we're talking about quadratics, right? So we're talking about the parabola. And the solutions are defined as where it crosses the x-axis. So like this up here, this has 2 solutions because it crosses twice. If I had one that was up here, it would be no solutions because it doesn't cross. If I had one where just the top of the parabola top, that'd be 1 solution. So the question is, how many I don't want to know what it is, I just want to know how many there are. How many solutions are there? Well, looking at this, if I solve these, both my answers are going to be x equals negative 4 if I set this equal to 0. So that means there's only 1 solution. It's just negative 4. Okay, that was part A. Part B gives me this. This is after you can use the quadratic equation. And the main point here is the discriminant is negative. So that means this is, this is 1 solution. This is none, okay, or no solution, because you cannot take the square root of the negative, so you cannot continue to solve. And C, we get y equals x squared minus 2x minus 9. So what I would do here is I would go ahead and use the discriminant. Remember, the discriminant comes from the quadratic, and it's just this part right here. So that's going to be negative 2 squared minus 4 times a times c. So this is going to equal positive 4. This is going to be plus 36, because this is a negative and a negative. So that equals 40. So since the discriminant is positive, it tells me that there are 2 solutions.